Oh, you damn right. Let's do the recruiting hour because recruiting never stops. It almost felt like I planned that right as I didn't. I just forgot to switch the pictures. And we know you guys get used to kind of people in certain spots. So that's what we
It
try to
even
do.
threw me off, Chad. So I
Yeah.
was like, wait a second, I'm not used to.
I'm not going to spend the show doing
Whoa.
that. That would be weird. We're not going to be doing all that. But recruiting never stops. The picture switching will stop, but recruiting doesn't. Jason's got more great updates for you. That, of course, is Jason Sukamel of orangebloods.com. Check out the great stuff at Orange Bloods. We will definitely tell you about that. And of course, we will tell you about Longhorn Wealth Management Group. They are our incredible sponsors for the recruiting hour. John is a proud Texas X's life member. His wife, his 6 siblings, they're all UT grads. They bleed orange through and through, and that's why the company was branded Longhorn Wealth Management Group. They're dedicated to providing investment, retirement, insurance, and estate planning services and solutions to Longhorn families and friends across the nation for over 30 years. And they are offering you a free 90-minute private consultation. Learn how working with a certified financial planner like John can help you maximize your wealth, minimize your taxes, and ensure your legacy. 972-707-4900, or you can go online to longhornwealth.net. Shout out to John and his family and crew that are all ready for the updates today. That's why we do the recruiting hour. And Jason, we've got some good ones. There was a commit added to the 2026 list. I know we'll definitely get your thoughts on him. Local product, if you're in the Austin area, that's coming up. But Jason, we'll start today with a couple of big names. I believe you got so much good content out there. I believe these appear in the 321 article this week for Mr. Barnes and Mr. Calakut. But let's start with Landon Barnes. And this was kind of, would you classify this as a surprise visit? Did you see this one coming when it did?
No, it was, that's a good way to describe it. I mean, he tweeted it out, hey, I'm going to be visiting Texas, but it was a little bit of a surprise because he had never visited Texas before. Now the UT just offered him in late April, right? So he's a new offer. But a lot of times those guys will come in trying to earn offers, and he had never come in for a visit before. Texas was not hosting any other recruits last weekend. I mean, I thought the coaches were away last weekend for the most part. But no, Landon Barnes out of Duncanville, edge defender, kind of defensive end edge defender, came in. In fact, it was such a surprise. He tweeted, I think it was on Friday or maybe Saturday, Chad. He tweeted like, hey, I'm visiting Texas this weekend. So I had to clarify. I said, hey, are you like talking like this Sunday, or are you talking like the following weekend or something? But he said, no, I'm coming in on Sunday. So yeah, it was a little bit of a surprise visit, just in the fact that he was the only player that came to campus. And I don't think we're expecting that one to set up the way it did. And I'm not expecting anybody this coming weekend either.
So you mentioned the fact that this is a recent offer. I'm seeing him as the number 15 edge rusher in the country, according to Rivals. You mentioned that he's a Duncanville, so it's not a player that would have surprised Texas, shocked Texas, come out of nowhere. Why do you think it took this long? I guess does this feel? I guess I should ask. Does it feel like this has taken a while for the offer to get there, or has it felt pretty normal to you?
A little bit. He's been kind of Ohio State just offered him May 18th, 2 days ago. Ole Miss. No, that's not true. The Ohio State, those just got added to the beta database. I misspoke there. I'm sorry. But they just offered him fairly recently, probably like, March or April. Georgia offered, LSU offered. Those were March. So he's kind of blown up this spring, Chad. Okay. Initially at Duncanville, most of the attention was on KJ Ford, but I'd kind of heard people saying like, hey, this Landon Barnes kid might be better than KJ Ford. Well, people have gone out and watched him this spring. He's 6'4", 240 pounds. Really got a good frame. Good that you can project to that Division I level. But yeah, Texas was a little late in the game getting in on this one. But Texas just hired this spring Alan Clark, their new edge coach, right, specifically for this position. So Alan Clark kind of got the ball rolling on this. And I talked to Landon, and we'll get into our conversation a little bit more. But he said, hey, that doesn't bother me that Texas was a little late to the party. He goes, I understand that he hired a new coach and he wanted to do his own evaluation, and he did, and he liked me, and he gave me the offer, and that's what made Landon want to get down to Austin.
Yeah, and I think it's we've talked about it so much, Jason, on this show, the players and how attentive they are to certain details that surprise me a little bit as an older guy. I've been following, through you guys, following recruiting for so many years, but just little details like the fact that Alan Clark is a newer guy on the staff, but that a player would sort of be willing to, I'm going to give him a shot. It's sort of like, hey, I play at Duncanville. We're talking about Texas, and this is a new coach on the staff. Yeah, I'm going to give this guy his chance to, get his feet wet, get his feet on the ground, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and he's done a good job. Alan Clark has just with a number of players, kind of opening doors for Texas that were maybe mostly closed. Okay, so now with this one, with Texas being a bit of a late offer, the only real hurdle there, and maybe it'll turn out to be a blessing in disguise. He's already visited Arizona State, Landon Barnes has. He's got Washington in 2 weeks. If you're Texas, you'd love to have him come in for an official visit in June, right? But he's got Ole Miss on the 6th. He's got Georgia on the 13th, Ohio State on the 20th. So his calendar for June, official visits weekend calendar, is full. So not ideal, but he did say, hey, I'm probably going to take a Texas official visit in September, maybe for their first game of the season. So who knows? Maybe it works out in Texas's favor. You get that last official visit for Landon Barnes. And, who knows? By that time, Texas may have 2 or 3 edge guys committed. So there's a lot of moving parts in this thing, Chad. But, his official – one thing, by being a little bit later with the offer, his official visit calendar is pretty full. So Texas now will probably have to wait till September to get him in for an official visit.
It's going to be interesting to follow. And remember, the way that Texas schedule plays out, you have the 3 non-conference games that really don't have a lot of sizzle early, and then you have Arkansas and A&M late. Those are the 5 games. There's really not a lot of pizzazz in that in that home schedule.
You don't have that Georgia coming to Austin.
Exactly.
The A&M game is what it is. That's a huge game. That's a Friday game too, but you don't have that big Saturday traditional schedule game. Like last year, if you remember, Georgia game, there are a bazillion recruits coming in, right?
Yeah.
I mean, maybe you try to do that for Arkansas, but it probably won't have that sizzle like you said.
Right. The Florida game had a little bit of that feel too, and you just don't have that this year. So be interesting to watch there. So Landon Barnes might end up coming in for an official visit in September. And we've already mentioned the name Alan Clark this week on the Modcast. We devoted the whole show in terms of the setup to Alan Clark. He's done some interesting stuff. His name will be mentioned again in this recruiting hour because the new edge coach is doing his job. It's a really interesting hire for Sark, and it feels like it's paying off big time. So keep that name in mind. Another name to keep in mind, Jason, the first guy we hit today is a big-time in-state guy. So is the second one. We've talked about Chase Calakut before. I love the name. Also love a big, long, rangy safety, which is what we've talked about, 6'3" or 6'4", if I'm not mistaken. Stud out of North Shore. Give us the update on Calakut.
Yeah, he's top 55. I think he's 54 national player. So, I mean, he's in that kind of 5-star conversation if he blows up this senior season and moves up the rankings a little bit. But, Chase, Texas, we've talked about him before. Texas has always been a major player for Chase Calakut. Well, he came out late last week and said, hey, I'm only focusing on 3 schools. And it's Texas, it's Michigan, it's Georgia, which is interesting because people thought maybe Washington might be in there. I think maybe Ohio State was playing around there, some of the more regional schools. We said, no, Texas, Michigan, and Georgia are his 3 finalists. He'll take official visits to all 3. And then he told me, Chad, he said, hey, I'm going to make a decision shortly after that last visit, which is Texas. He said probably end of June, he'll have a decision. So he's not a guy that's going to take his visits and take a month and a half to decide. He wants to decide pretty quickly. What's interesting here is Texas was going to be the 13th. Michigan was going to be the 20th. Okay, Georgia's June 6th. Well, he flipped those. So now Texas gets the last crack at him, okay, right before he makes his decision. So I think that bodes well for Texas. I think if I'm ranking these schools going into these official visits, I think it's Texas, then probably Michigan, then Georgia would probably be third. But you know, listen, you can't discount Georgia. You can't discount Michigan, right? Those are really good programs. But I still think Texas is in a good spot here. I felt that way for a long time, excuse me. I have my future cast in for Texas. I'm trying to see when I put it in. It was back in January, so I put it in a long time ago. So he's been pretty open, Chase has, about Texas being a leader or even the leader on his list. So I continue to like Texas. You know, I asked him about what do you like about Georgia, and I'll just paraphrase. He just said, hey, they're DBs. Georgia's a powerhouse. They put guys in the league. They're always in that national championship race. Michigan, he highlighted Coach Sharon Moore and Lamar Morgan, their DB coach. They put guys in the league, he said. That's a well-respected program at Michigan. Texas, he said, it's Coach Orfe and Coach Akina. He said, Coach Orfe being from North Shore, he said, we can relate. You know, he knows how to kind of connect with us. He said, Akina, man, he's got a history of putting guys in the league. He said, Texas, I think will have a chance at a national championship. That's appealing to him. So he did tell me that all three are pretty even. He said, nobody's above anybody else going into these visits, you know, and that's maybe true, but I still think Texas is in a good spot. He's a guy that's really close to his family, Chad. So I think if all things are pretty equal, I think Chase Calakut stays closer to home. Obviously, that favors Texas over Michigan or Georgia.
Yeah, I was going to say, I'm not denying that all things might not be equal, but to be fair, Jason, is anybody else recruiting them that went to North Shore that we know about?
Not that I'm aware of. No.
Just saying. We've talked about Coach Orfe as well, and it is an interesting juxtaposition, too, at the DB's coaching position where you get a little bit of everything, right? You can give them a little bit of the younger, fresher vibe, not just that, but the North Shore thing for a kid that's from that area. But then you can also have that Dwayne Akina, right? High energy, older guy, but he's also a guy with a track record a mile long in terms of the talent. So, I mean, if I'm a big time defensive back or the family of a kid like that, that's a good balance, I would think. You kind of get the best of both worlds.
It really is. Like if I'm a parent and I'm like sending my kid away, I'm like, wait a second, you're going to go 3 hours away from home. You're going to have, like you said, that balance in Dwayne Akina's knowledge and expertise and his history and track record, as you said, along with Mark Orfe, who's a young, energetic guy. That really is a pretty good balance. That's a tough combination to beat when you factor in that North Shore connection and Dwayne Akina's experience. So, you know what? You just sold me. I think I'm feeling pretty good about my future cast, Chad.
There it is. Helping future casts since 2023. That's what I've been doing. Chase Calakut, number 4 safety, according to Rivals, from what I'm seeing here. And again, the official visit switch there. So June 20th now.
This is a good, if he winds up at Texas, I probably need to get him on the show anyways. We don't have many recruits join us, but he'd be a good one. He's real personable.
Yeah,
got a good sense of humor. He's a really good. He'd be a good guy to bring on the recruiting hour for a quick interview at some point.
That would be cool. We appreciate you guys jumping in on the recruiting hour. We do it. It premieres every Wednesday at 10 a.m. Also, let's give a shout out to Specs. They sponsor the chat on all the shows where we have chats rolling. And you might be like me and getting ready for a graduation weekend, meaning there's a graduation party and you got to get stocked up. Specs can help you. Here you go.
Texans know for selection and lower prices, it all starts at Specs.
Shop Specs!
No matter what's on the menu, we've got you covered. With all your favorites on tap, you'll bring home the win.
Shop Specs!
Special occasion? Flirt responsibly. Boots on, drinks up. The fun starts here.
Shop Specs, low priced, amazing. Here's to you.
Jason, I have advice for anybody out there that is just getting started, like in life, marriage, just moving into a house. If you're going to live somewhere for 20 years, don't wait 20 years to clean a certain room of the house. It will exhaust you. I'm going to need a beer and then some. My wife and I can be a little bit messy, a little bit like we don't like to do some of the typical, oh my God. I cleaned some baseboards yesterday, Jason, and it felt like there was 20 years of stuff on there. It was terrible.
I was wondering where you were going with this. Okay, getting preparation for a graduation party, I guess.
Yeah, getting the prep in there, and you know how it is. Sometimes it's like my wife will throw an idea out, And sometimes she's serious and sometimes she's just throwing it out. But then sometimes I'll tell, it's like, you know what? I think she's right. And then it's a challenge for me. Like, okay, can I clean that? And it'll impress her. And so we're in all that right now.
That's when you get someone to come to your house and do a deep clean and just shell out the money, Chad.
Should probably do that too. Does Lisa at Specs do that? Hey, Lisa, let us know. Can you send some Specs folks over to the house? Does the rabbit do house calls? Can we do that? All right. So we mentioned a couple of those names to start with, Landon Barnes and Chase Calakut. Again, we tell you all the time about the great content at orangebloods.com. Let me throw up the QR code real quick. Check out the 321 article for those two names and a lot more. Jason gets you that article throughout each week with the all the different stuff. The one at the end is always a bold prediction for Jason each week. There's questions answered. There's the latest in recruiting, and I think we're even pulling a little more from it this week because there's a lot of good stuff there. So, Jason, we were just talking earlier about Alan Clark and his effect on the team and what he's been doing. The name Lamar Brown is not one you and I don't think we've talked about him a ton on the recruiting show, if at all. Maybe his name's come up, but it didn't sound super familiar to me. But I could tell this one was a big deal. It almost feels like Coach Clark feels like this is a big deal. So give me the update here on Lamar Brown. Why is that a name people should remember?
Yeah, he's not a guy we've talked about because really Texas has never been involved there. Yeah, they offered him. I mean, he's a 5-star type player. He's number 25 overall player in the country. Rivals has him as an interior offensive lineman. He can also play defensive line, which is where Alan Clark comes into play here. Alan Clark and Lamar Brown have a history. They've known each other for a while. It's not like they just met each other on the recruiting path. Alan Clark visited him at his school, University Lab in Baton Rouge. And this was a week or so ago. And Lamar Brown was like, hey, I might have to get up to Austin for a visit. I was like, okay. I didn't think a whole lot of it. I thought it was just a kid saying kid things. Well, lo and behold, this week, Chad, he scheduled a Texas official visit. He canceled a Florida State visit that he had for June 6th. He's now coming to Texas on June 6th for an official visit. He has A&M on June 13th and LSU on June 20th. This has pretty much been a 2-team race between LSU and Texas A&M. Suddenly, Texas is trying to work its way in there, and they're going to get him on campus for a visit. Now, normally you would say, hey, that school is too far behind. It's too little, too late, right? Mm-hmm. But with Texas, we've seen this coaching staff do this before. All it takes is one visit. And you're like, okay, Texas is right there in the mix. Can they end up beating out LSU, maybe A&M, who's giving LSU a run for its money? I don't know. It might be tough, but I'm not going to put it past the staff. Obviously, what Texas has to offer, I mean, let's be honest, NIL, but Alan Clark, his recruiting chops, what he's shown so far. So pretty big development there for Texas to go from really not even being considered within about a week and a half. Now Lamar Brown is not just considering Texas, he's coming in for an official visit.
Yeah, and I had to get myself up to speed real quick. Baton Rouge kid, you mentioned the LSU connection here. So a Louisiana guy, I see 6'5", 292 here on the Rivals info. And for people wondering why would Coach Clark think it's a big deal? Why would fans think it's a big deal? When we've been talking about the outside of the offensive line, the tackles and names like Ojo and Turntine, we've told you that Ojo is like number 3 in the country with Rivals. Turntine, I think, was like 5 the last time we talked about it. Jason, this dude is number 1 in interior offensive line.
He is, but I think Texas would – I mean, Coach Clark's leading the charge, so I think Texas likes him as a defensive lineman. I mean –
is that right? Okay.
Term future holds, but, Coach Clark and Kyle Flood may have to arm wrestle for him if he comes to Texas.
Yeah, well, that's what I was going to ask you. Like with that, the fact that he's rated that high offensively, but you're telling me there's a connection with Clark and that he can play D-line. Yeah. Do we have a sense for, I guess, both sides, a coach's dream for him and maybe his dream for himself? Do we have any of that info?
I've never talked to the kid. I mean, I need to try to change that probably here in the next week. But what I've heard and read, I think he fancies himself on either side of the ball. I don't know that he has a strong preference. I'm not sure exactly where A&M and LSU are recruiting on what side of the ball, but Rivals has him as, like I said, you said an interior offensive lineman. I'm not sure what I know on his Twitter handle or his Twitter profile, he lists himself as an offensive lineman / defensive lineman. He says number 1 offensive tackle in the nation, number 1 defensive tackle in the nation. So, 24/7, interestingly, has him as a defensive lineman. On 3 has him as an athlete. So, I mean, it's all over the place here, Chad. But
Wow.
with Texas, with Coach Clark kind of being the ringleader of that recruitment, I got to assume Texas is talking to him predominantly about defensive line.
Man, that's incredible. The amount of sort of, chutzpah that it takes to say you're the number 1 offensive lineman, defensive lineman, but then the fact that everybody kind of looks at it and goes, "Oh yeah, no, he's really good." So maybe he is allowed to say that. That is awesome. So Lamar Brown, a name to really keep in mind. And again,
he is. I'm looking at 24/7 is the one who has him ranked as a pure defensive lineman. They've got him the number 1 defensive lineman in the country. So, I mean, he's not lying when he says, "Hey, I'm the number 1 interior offensive lineman and the number 1 defensive lineman." He is ranked number 1 at both positions. So,
I mean, Jason, we did just get done watching Travis Hunter at Colorado. Just let him play both ways. It's not like either one of those positions is physically tasking. I mean, come on.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right. I am interested, though, Jason, in which direction he would want to go. That's why I asked the question about it. Like, for coaches are one thing, but I'm always interested in players like that. If I'm a badass of that level, I'm 6'5", I'm a monster. What type of monster do I want to be? Do I want to create or do I want to destroy? Sometimes it's more fun to destroy and easier in some situations, but it can also be more rewarding to create, I would imagine, to be a part of an offense that you're building things that way. And then some kids, I'm sure, have the mindset of, nope, I want to break stuff, Chad. That's what I want to do. I want to break every idea they have. So I'm interested to see what it is with Lamar.
Sorry, if he was like a left tackle, you'd probably say, okay, probably offensive lineman, right? But as an interior offensive lineman, I mean, let's think about this.
Right.
5 years from now, he's going to the NFL draft. Is he going to hold more value as a guard or as a defensive tackle? Probably a defensive tackle, right?
Yeah, I would think it's a DT.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's something to think about as well.
Yeah, that's a good point. Good point. All right, we are definitely going to Lamar Brown. Again, a name we might not have mentioned a ton on the Recruiting Hour. The next name we're going to talk about, we have mentioned on the Recruiting Hour. I promise you. I'll tell you what name that is after I remind you again about Longhorn Wealth Management Group. John is up there in the Dallas area, 15 years as a Dallas, Texas Exes chapter board member. He's now helping lead out the build out of the Collin County Texas Exes chapter. So if you're in that part of the world and you get involved, make sure you look John up and tell him hello. Tell him you heard about it on the Recruiting Hour. Remember that free 90-minute private consultation with John is available to you. Learn how working with a certified financial planner like John can help educate you about the various investment and planning strategies and solutions that can enable you to maximize your wealth, minimize your taxes, and ensure your legacy. The free 90-minute consultation, take advantage of it. You can call John and his team to get set up, 972-707-4900, or you can go online to longhornwealth.net. John is always throwing hook'ems at us and checking out the show every week. I know he is pumped about not only recruiting, but all the Longhorn stuff going on right now, including baseball and softball doing very well and other sports rolling too. Longhorn Wealth Management Group, they are your sponsor for the Recruiting Hour, and we debut every Wednesday at 10 a.m. All right, Jason, I know I've said Jaryon Carlton's name on this show. Speaking of badass defensive linemen, he certainly is one, and I think it was just last week, and maybe in this show, other shows, you and I have talked about it, where things may have cooled a little, but it feels like now it might be heating back up for the stud from Temple. Give us the latest.
Yeah, I don't want to call it a roller coaster ride, because when people hear that, they think like maybe this kid's all over the place. It hasn't been like that. Jaryon Carlton is an awesome kid, right? I mean, he's really an awesome kid. So it's not like he's been just flaky or pulling any games or anything like that. But it has kind of run hot and cold with Texas a little bit. Early on, I'm going back like a year ago, Texas was a major player for Jaryon Carlton. I would have said, hey, probably the leader. 6 months ago, I would have said the same thing. Things kind of started cooling off a little bit between him and Texas for whatever reason. Alan Clark, again, he gets to Austin. He starts making Jaryon Carlton more of a priority. So Texas is kind of surging there again. Jaryon did visit Texas in April. Came in for a scrimmage, but he came in late, so he didn't go to the scrimmage. But came in for an unofficial visit. But the big development here is that he, even coming out of that April visit, he wasn't going to take an official visit to Texas. He'd already visited Texas A&M, or he would go on to visit Texas A&M. Texas Tech.
Mm-hmm.
But he was going to take official visits to Texas A&M, Baylor, LSU, and SMU. Okay, well, he moved SMU out, moved Texas in. So now he's taking his Texas official visit that first weekend of June. So he'll go, make sure I get this right. He'll go to LSU on May 30th, Texas June 6th, A&M. I have June 12th, but I don't know. I think that's probably the 13th, unless they're bringing him in on a Thursday, which A&M does sometimes.
Right.
And then he'll visit Baylor June 20th for his final visit. So, Texas kind of surging here. I mean, does that mean they're the leader? No, I wouldn't say that, but they went from kind of being on the fringe to being, legitimately in the race again. And I asked Jaryon, I said, well, what changed? What made you want to give Texas a visit? And like his quote was just, he said, it's just how the process has been going. I just took my time with it, and I just felt like they deserved to have a visit. I mean, it's more about the Alan Clark, the effort he's been putting in. He said, hey, he's really relatable. I've known him even when he was at Ohio State. I knew him because he was recruiting me for Ohio State. So, so Texas is making a move there. And I would probably say LSU and A&M are the two favorites right now, just because Texas kind of faded for a bit. But I'm telling you, this is one where Texas can surge in a hurry, Chad. And now they're getting that official visit. I think Texas could be in a good spot as we go through the month of June. I could see us talking about Texas legitimately winning this race.
Speaking of kids using phrases that kind of stop me for a second, Texas deserves the attention, deserves the visit. There's something classy about that, Jason. Like, you could hear that as sort of an ego comment, but if I'm a Texas fan, I just hear that as respect for the school. And also, again, like we've been talking about, if you're that good and you're at Temple and Texas does their work, eventually the kids got to realize, okay, look, I at least have to give them the time of day, right?
Yeah. That's a good. I didn't think of that, but when you say Texas they deserve to have a visit, I think it's two things. I think it's the efforts of Coach Clark, and I think it's just like, hey, it's the University of Texas, right down the road. I'd be doing a disservice to myself if I didn't give them a look. Right? They deserve, for my future, they deserve to be in the at least consideration. But I also think it's a testament to the efforts of the coaching staff, and they deserve to get a visit. I think that's Coach Clark making him feel like a priority.
Yeah, another reason Longhorn fans to be glad Alan Clark is on your coaching staff right now. And Jason, as much as we've talked about that June 13th weekend building up really well, and June 20th you just mentioned for the last statement on Chase Calakut, these two big dogs, Lamar Brown and Jaryon Carlton, are both set to come in on June 6th. That first,
among many others, Chad. Like I tell you what, this weekend. Right? Is this yeah, okay. No, I got this week. I got 2 more weekends before we get to that June 6th. But this weekend is a holiday weekend. I am going to try to really enjoy every minute of hopefully relaxing, because come June, man, I'm going to be like dragging you know what, because it's going to be a busy month, man.
Going to be impressive stuff. So Jaryon Carlton is also on that June 6th list. And I think one of the, let me see if I get it right. Is Ojo the 6th or is Ojo the 13th?
Ojo's the 13th.
Ojo's the 13th.
Yeah,
That's
some
right.
running backs on the 6th. I mean,
that's who it is. It's KJ Edwards and somebody coming in on the 6th, right?
Crowell and several others.
Yeah, there we go. Okay, good stuff. All right, let's see what other names we need to hit. I think you had an update on Dylan Barryman in the 3-2-1. Is that right?
Yeah, just had a quick note. I mean, I talked to Dylan last week, and he had just come off a Purdue. This is a young man out of Louisiana, by the way, a defensive tackle out of Louisiana. And for a while there, it was Texas and USC. Okay, USC's out. They're no longer being considered. You'd think that, okay, that bodes well for Texas, right? Well, maybe, but he did visit Purdue a couple weeks ago on an official visit. He told me, hey, Purdue's the team to beat for him right now. And there's a lot of buzz coming from the Purdue side coming out of this weekend. Like, so I don't like using the term silent commitment, but I mean, there's some rumors out there about that. Now, here's the deal. He is still planning on taking a Texas official visit. I think he's got SMU, maybe Mississippi State still probably getting a visit, but that Texas visit on June 6th, we talk about June 6th, Dylan Barryman, assuming he sticks to his plan, Chad, and takes that Texas official visit. I get it. He loves Purdue right now, but I just have a hard time seeing a player from Louisiana, if Texas is prioritizing him, going to Purdue over the University of Texas. So I get it. Hey, I'm not discounting what he's saying about Purdue right now. I've done this long enough. We can all kind of project the future to some degree. I think Texas surges there as long as they continue to make him a priority. And they have this spring. They went to a couple of his practices. They went to his spring game just last Friday. So, Texas has made him a priority. If they continue to do that, I think all this Purdue buzz kind of dies down a little bit. But there are, like, I know Steve Wiltfong from On 3, I think, has a commitment prediction in for Purdue. And I'm not saying he's wrong. Listen, I mean, Wiltfong's amazing. And I think he's probably right as things stand right now. But if I'm trying to project 3 steps in the future, I still think Texas probably feels pretty good in this one.
Yeah, that's interesting with Purdue. I mean, that's obviously if the kid was from Illinois or Michigan, or Jersey or something like that, might have a different feel to it. That's definitely one to keep an eye on. Now, Jason, let me make sure I'm right in my transfer portal info. Isn't Purdue where Cole Brevard was?
Yeah, sure is. Yeah, that's right.
And also the tight end that Texas took a look at, but that ended up at Ohio State, Claire. Wasn't he Purdue?
He was Purdue as well. I believe that's right. And, hey, maybe you have Brevard host Dylan Barryman when he comes in on his official visit. You can say, hey, I've been at Purdue. I've been at Texas. I mean, that's a great point, Chad. I hadn't thought about that. But like, hey, man, like, listen, I can compare. And you want to know the truth about both places? I'm your guy. And like, I've only been in Austin for a few months, but it's a whole different world down here.
Yeah, you want the what is that? West Lafayette, Indiana is Purdue, I think. You want the West Lafayette Austin comp? I can give you that. Yeah. That's an interesting one to keep in mind. So again, another name to add to that June 6th list, Dylan Barryman. I'm seeing him here, number 10 D tackle in the country, according to Rivals. So these are big time names that we're throwing out to you here on the Recruiting Hour. And again, check out orangebloods.com. The 321 article is out there right now. Also, coming off of the weekend, information on different Texas targets. And this past weekend, there were a few guys that went to Gator country. A couple weeks ago, it was a Colorado group of visits that we were kind of paying attention to. Well, this week, it was Florida for multiple guys. So there's updates there. There's a Felix Ojo update in there if you want to check it out. Jason, anything else? I know we've hit most of the names we wanted to, whether it's from some of that weekend stuff or other things. Anything else you want to throw out this week in the Recruiting Hour? There's a lot of it.
Let's touch on Yaheem Riley, the new commitment who committed on Friday, just for a minute. At Austin Anderson, Texas, picked up a safety. I tell you, these kids have to stop committing on Fridays, Chad, because they get kind of lost in the shuffle. Like, all right, Yaheem, we're giving you a couple minutes on our Recruiting Hour. If you would have committed on a Monday morning, we would have probably spent an hour talking about you. But,
we got to teach the recruits about the phrase media dump and what it means.
Yeah. And literally, like, I was driving down the highway going to San Marcos to meet my son for lunch, I think, when he committed. I was like, damn it, man. I can't. You and I talked about it, I think, last week.
I felt so bad for you, man. I felt so bad for you at that moment.
I won't say the words on the Recruiting Hour that I said in our group chat, but, but it was a lot worse than damn it. But it's like, dude, I just can't get a freaking way to go even have lunch with my son without something happening. But and you know what? The previous commitment, I was literally having lunch with my daughter. Not this. So it's like, I mean, maybe I should just keep taking my kids to lunch for good news for Texas fans. But
that's the key, Jason. The fans started that thing where they wanted Anwar to go on vacation because it produced recruits. Now they're going to start sending you to lunch with your children.
Hey, Sukamel, we got a lunch reservation for you at this place. Go eat lunch and we'll get a commitment. But Yaheem, it was always going to be Texas. I feel like in that one, he's a former Houston commitment. Texas Tech was involved there. Let me look in Houston still. I'm sure like he was going to visit even Vanderbilt, which is interesting. But you just kind of look at the competition. You're like, okay, that just always felt like it was going to be Texas. I had my future cast in for Texas. It was just a matter of when it was going to happen, and it just happened on Friday early afternoon. So really good player at Austin Anderson. I went back and watched his film again, and he's got some Jahdae Barron to his game. He's got some Andrew Makuba that he can be like a deep safety who can make plays, but he's also got some Barron that he can play in the slot. And he's very heady, okay? Just very heady like Jahdae was. He's physical, good hands, good ball skills. He's an intriguing pickup. And I know he's only a 3-star guy, but like I watched his film again today. I'm like, I don't know, man. I think rivals may have this one wrong. I could see him moving up. So, this is a Mark Orfe pickup. He's kind of been targeting him for a while. Obviously, the entire defensive back staff is involved there. But, another good pickup for Texas that kind of can continue this recent May run of recruiting commitments. We don't usually see that till like July, but we've kind of seen an interesting run of commitments in May for Texas, and Yaheem Riley being the latest.
And and 3 in a row now. There's 8 total guys in the 2026 class, and now 3 in a row in the defensive backfield. I guess technically Jermaine Bishop is listed as an athlete, but Jason, I know you've talked about his talent in the defensive backfield, but it's kind of 3 in a row here. Mark Orfe kind of flexing the recruiting muscle with these last 3 guys in the 2026 class. And as Jason said, Riley is a local product, Austin Anderson. So we'll pay attention there. And as of right now, Jason, did I also see, and pardon me if you said this just now, not only the commitment, but he did also set an official visit coming up for Texas?
He
right?
is the 13th, I believe. Yes, June 13th. He's had that set for a little bit, but yeah, June 13th.
Gotcha. So he'll be in on the 13th. Never hurts to have a committed athlete come in for an official visit weekend to help the full recruiting push that you're looking for. A lot of info out there. And again, check out orangebloods.com and the 321 and the update from the weekend. There's just a lot of stuff coming off of really from every angle here as we get closer to June, as we record the show this week. And of course, we premiere on Wednesdays at 10 a.m. We are sitting here 102 days until Texas and Ohio State. The 100-day mark is coming up on Thursday, in case y'all are like me and you're keeping up with such things. All right, Jason, before we close the door this week, anything else we need to hit recruiting wise?
No, I think we've covered most of it for this week, Chad.
A lot of good big names. Texas fans, you should feel damn good about it. Get to orangebloods.com for the very latest and check out Longhorn Wealth Management Group. They are a great sponsor of the Recruiting Hour. And again, we debut every Wednesday at 10. We appreciate you for your support. Y'all have a great week, and we'll talk to you next week, 10 a.m. on Wednesday. The next episode will premiere the Recruiting Hour. This is Orange Bloods Live. Y'all take care. See you.